Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really glad to have with me once again Quinton Hennigh. Dr. Hennigh is the president and CEO of Novo Resources, and Novo Resources trades in Toronto under the symbol NVO. You can buy it in the United States, as I have, under the symbol NSRPF. The stock has recently traded around 71, 72 cents in U.S. money. It has reached a high of around $1.40 or so in U.S. money over the past year. It's now selling at around half of that at 71, 72 cents. 93 million shares outstanding, giving it a market cap of around $66 million. But the fundamentals of this company, from what I can see, are as good as ever, and it might be a good time for people to take a look at Novo Resources. Thank you again, Quinton, for joining me. Welcome to Turning Hard Times into Good Times.
Thank you, Jay.
You know, we've talked in the past about Beaton's Creek. It's in northwestern Australia. This is your Witwatersrand look-alike, and we've talked about that a lot, and I want to get an update from you on that as well, because I know you're doing some trial mining there. But also you have a very exciting target that you're putting some holes into now at Blue Spec. It's the Blue Spec gold antimony prospect, and you're doing some drilling, and we've seen some pretty decent drill results coming out. As a geologist, are you seeing what you hope to see there at Blue Spec, Quinton, and are you pleased with what you're seeing so far?
Yes, Jay. Overall, we're very pleased with what we see so far. Our approach with Blue Spec is it's really threefold: to test areas around the known resource. This is an historic resource that was defined by our previous company. So we're testing basically around the margins of that for continuations of mineralization. And then we're testing areas along strike. So basically within, say, a few hundred meters along strike of those defined mineralized zones. And then we're also testing a series of new, what I call greenfield targets along the Blue Spec shear zone, which is a much, much larger structural feature in this region. So we have assays out recently. I think in November we had two announcements, one earlier in the month, one near the end of the month, about results mainly of the drilling that's proximal to both Blue Spec and the Gold Spec chute. These are two high-grade chutes. The first announcement discussed extensions of high-grade at Blue Spec. As planned, we see a continuation of the mineralization down plunge to the east. We had a good intercept. I think it was around 2.55 meters at something around 60 grams per ton. Then over at Gold Spec, more recently, we've announced some very important holes. One very notable hole was essentially down plunge about 50 or 60 meters below the known mineralized zone. We hit an interval of 31 meters of 5.8 grams per ton, and that includes a shorter interval of about 4 meters of, I think it was around 35 grams per ton. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it gives listeners a sense of the kinds of grades we're dealing with. It's a very high-grade system.
Quinton, can you give us a little sense of the size of these structures that you're looking at? I mean, the strike length of them, perhaps?
Sure. These are really what they are is they're very high-grade chutes that occur along a near-vertical structure. The near-vertical structure, you can almost think of it like, say, the San Andreas Fault or something. It's a very long, continuous structure, and along that you have zones that are maybe 100 to 200 meters long, and they plunge down into the ground, very steeply, say, almost like a knife blade or something along these structures.
But this mineralization is coming up near surface, to surface, right, close to surface, right? These vertical structures.
Correct. Yes, that's how we've discovered these new targets. For example, we found quartz, gold, and antimony veins. These are at surface, and we drilled. Assuming that the structures are near vertical, we've drilled below those. So the assays we have back so far, very near known targets, or known mineralization. The assays that will be coming back over the next few weeks are from greenfields targets where we found new high-grade chutes.
All right. Well, one of the things that's really exciting about this, I know there has been a JORC resource by the previous owners of this property, and these are really numbers that are really outstanding. I mean, we're looking at something like 220,000 ounces grading 16 grams per ton, and some pretty good antimony values as well there, Quinton. I know these aren't 43101 numbers, so you can't really talk about them, but is it the goal of your existing program to establish some 43101 resource on this project?
Well, what we would like to do with this drill round is to see if blue spec has a critical mass. We think that the project needs about double the existing historic resource to kind of hit a level where it becomes interesting to look at economics and things like that. So really this drill program that we've completed here recently is to look at that kind of potential. So far we do see significant continuations or extensions of the high grade shoots at gold spec and blue spec. We're hoping with the drilling that we've done on the greenfield targets, these new high-grade shoots, that we see maybe 2 or 3 more of these pop up. Once we start to see a picture like that, then we hope to then drill out the resource that you mentioned, drill up a larger 43101 resource. But that would come with the next round of drilling.
All right, so maybe 2017 sometime. We might start to see some numbers if things go as you hope they do. I think it's really quite exciting. This is something then that investors should really be keeping their eyes on. Of course, this was sort of a bonus. When I first started following your company, Quinton, you didn't have the blue spec yet, but I know you had your eyes on some of those possibilities, and when they came available, you grabbed them. But I'd like to go back to Beaton's Creek, which was what initially attracted me to your story, and that was the sort of the Witwatersrand look-alike, or geological look-alike, perhaps. Do you still see it that way, Quinton?
Yeah, yes, we do. To refresh people's memory, or for new listeners, what this is a conglomerate-hosted system. These gold deposits are quite unusual compared to most gold systems. They're bedded, so these are nearly flat-lying, say 1 meter to 2 meter thick beds of conglomerate. They're very continuous sheet-like deposits, almost like coal seams or something. Mm-hmm. And the geology we have at Beaton's Creek is quite similar to the Witwatersrand. We know that the reefs continue into this broad, very, very old basin, but to make it very clear, to those who our new listeners say, what we're tackling right now is where the reefs come out to surface. So we're looking at the very, very near surface outcrops and shallowly buried reefs in a scenario where we can mine them in an oxide, so basically a very well oxidized environment. Very simple mining techniques. If you want to learn more about how we're approaching this, I would suggest looking at recent news releases. But we're looking at something that does not require drilling and blasting. It's a free dig kind of environment. It's very soft rock, so with simple equipment and for relatively cheap cost, we anticipate being able to mine these things. The gold in them is quite coarse. It's easily separable using gravity recovery. So we envision gravity treatment on these rocks and producing our gold in a very, very cost-effective way.
I know that you're doing some test mining now. How's that going?
Okay, so we actually have completed the test mining. A few weeks ago, I announced that we completed our processing component of that. There's 2 stages to this test mine. One was the actual mining itself, or the extraction of the bulk sample. The way we did that was we went up and cut a bench in one of these hills, so that the reef is basically a few meters below surface. We went in with the bulldozer, removed overburden, and then basically unroofed the horizon that we were targeting. And then we went in with an excavator and carefully dug out the mineralized material. We dug 30,000 tons and then put it down in a stockpile near a small gold plant that we had purchased a few months back. And then we crushed up the material and put it through this gold plant and recovered the coarse gold, the easy picking gold, we'll call it, out of this material. Now, the goal of the processing exercise is really to confirm or to affirm the grades of these reefs. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge with the deposit is that it's quite nuggety, and because there are nuggets of gold, it's very difficult to evaluate grade. Mm-hmm. You need a big sample to do this. So that's the reasoning behind taking this bulk sample. And we process this. We effectively remove that coarse gold. There's still gold tied up in the tailings. This is not, I want to make it very clear, this is not how we're going to process things in a commercial sense. This is simply like a big science experiment. But we recover the coarse gold out. There's gold in the tailings. So what we have to do is we have to also acid the tailings And that way we can, mathematically we can recombine what we produce with what's in the tailings and come up with what's called a calculated head grade, which is a true estimate of how much gold is in the rock. So the number that we're going to release here in a few days or maybe a couple of weeks, the assays are slow to come back, but that number is going to tell us what the grade is. And we can then compare it to what we predicted the grade would be based on our drilling. So it'll be quite interesting to see how this pans out. We're optimistic that the calculated head grade will be higher than the predicted grade based on the drilling.
Yes, and that's going to be in another few weeks, maybe middle of January, something like that, possibly.
I think we'll see the number before then. This is the 7th today. We have another probably good productive week here in Australia. People tend to start taking off for Christmas around the middle of the month, but I'm hopeful to have those final assays from the tailings back shortly. And if so, I'll put them out, say next week. If there's a delay of some sort, it could be after Christmas, but I'll hedge my bets. I think we can get them out sooner.
Yeah, it would be a nice Christmas present, especially if it comes in as anticipated higher than the earlier assays. I guess people can keep up with this by going to your website and also probably get on your mailing list, right?
Yes, that's right. I would encourage people to look at our most recent presentation. It's updated. It shows photos of the trial mining and processing exercise. It shows some images of our drilling and recent drill success at Blue Spec. So I'd encourage people to look at that. But yes, get on our mailing list. You'll get regular updates as we release news.
All right, so once we have that number, we'll have a better sense of what the average grades may be for this oxide material, this near-surface material that I guess you're hoping to produce from at some point in the not-too-distant future. I know, Quinton, you had been looking at putting together a PEA, but you are still working on the PEA, and I guess this getting a good handle on the grade of your resource is one of the first steps to that. But do you anticipate having a PEA sometime earlier in the new year?
Yes. Correct, Jay. Look, we're moving Beaton's Creek towards production. As soon as we get this data, we plan on completing that economic study. I should make it very clear we've already done most of the work for the study. We're simply filling in a few details with what we determined for grade, as well as some of the costs and other things we learned about the deposit while we were mining it. So we should be able to complete that without issue early next year.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to that, of course. Your share price has been a little bit weak lately. It's been, actually, it's as I was saying, it's about half of the price it was earlier in the year. That's very common for most junior mining companies, but are there any other factors that may be leading to some weakness at the moment that might give people an opportunity to pick some shares up right now, Quinton?
Yes, look, I can actually give some insight. So about maybe 2.5 months ago, we did hit a high in, I think, around $1.80. We're currently trading around 90, so you're right, it's about half. What we've seen here in the past week or so is private placement that we did back in July. We actually had a couple of tranches closed, but the 4-month hold has come off on that. So there's some participants in that placement who decided to exit the stock. It's certainly created a buying opportunity for some people.
I know savvy investors are always looking for opportunities for entry, and sometimes these are good moments to do it. One more note yet before we conclude our discussion for today, Quinton. Newmont Mining has been a big shareholder. You have some other major shareholders. The float is still, maybe 50% or less than 50% of the shares outstanding?
Yeah, the free float's about, if you add up all the insiders, Newmont, the prospector here in Australia, Creasy, and, other insiders, we've got about 51 or 2%, I believe it is. So, yep, it's very tightly held.
Right, very tightly held. And so, we're really looking forward to 2017. Of course, that little Christmas present in terms of the grades, hopefully, before Christmas, that would be great. But in any event, Quinton, I want to thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we conclude our discussion today?
Yeah, I would say, comment about the overall gold market. I think everybody's been caught a bit by surprise the latter part of this year. Seeing gold come off fairly sharply after the election, it was certainly a wake-up call for a lot of us in the gold mining industry. But, I think from my perspective, we've got a very, very strong project at Beaton's Creek. We think it's potentially a very high margin project. So we are, aggressively pursuing that path. We're going to move forward, get this thing advance it through economic study and then hopefully towards production in 2017.
Well, it should be an exciting year for Novo, and frankly, I think the gold markets are bottoming here. At least, I don't think that's just wishful thinking. Our Michael Oliver is of that opinion, and certainly his momentum work has been very, very accurate. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one. But I'm more confident, in what you're doing there, Quinton, because step by step, I've been watching this for a number of years now, as you know. All the best to you and your team as you head into 2017. We'll look to talk to you again sometime soon.
Thank you, Jay.